Hello folks, this time around we want to talk about input and output redirection. So we're looking at how to change where a program gets its input from, or how to change where its output goes in either Bash or Linux if you want. So most of the time our programs take their input from the keyboard, let's say standard input, the basic input stream, and they send their output to standard output, right? Let's say it's dumping to the screen. For the most part, there's also a second output stream supported that lets you send error messages to a different location if desired. So it's called stderr. By default, it just goes to the screen as well. So I want to take a couple of moments to just look at what that might look like in a program, and then we'll experiment with how to redirect some of this. So I think in here we've got myprog.cpp. So this is an example of a program where it does just a basic prompt, asks the user to enter a number. If they enter something that's not a number, it generates an error message. Otherwise, it tells them what they entered. Nothing big and fancy, just to show the different streams. So this cout is reading from standard input, right? By default, that's going to take stuff from the keyboard. Or pardon me, it's blah. Let's try cout, Dave. So we're writing stuff to the screen. We're using cin to take stuff from the keyboard. If they enter good data, then we're using cout to write to the screen again. If they enter bad data, then we're sending output to this error stream, which by default is also just going to dump to the screen. So we'll take a look at this. Just see how we go in action here. Let's make sure we've got this compiled. myprog.cpp into, let's say, myprogx, and it compiles, yay. And we try running it, myprogx, and again, by default, it's going to write a prompt to the screen, read data from the keyboard, and write the output to the screen. And if we enter garbage, it's going to send its error message, right? That error stream is also just coming out to the screen right now. So we want to start playing with changing where this stuff comes from or goes to. So let's take a quick look here at some of our options. The first thing we want to take a look at is redirecting where data comes from. So the less than sign can be used to say take your data from a file instead of taking it from standard input. So if we go back to our example here and say, well, I've got a couple of data files lying around. So in data 1, I've got the number 37. And in data 2, I think I've got some garbage, right? So what we'll do is we'll run myprogx, but we'll say take your information from this file instead of waiting for me to type it in, right? So it grabbed the 37 from the file in this case. And the output is still coming to the screen. Or if we say from data 2, where it grabs that garbage value, again, it gets the data from the file, but it's sending all the output, both the standard output and the standard error is coming to the screen. So we can use that as a way to get information from a file instead. And you can have as much information as you like. It just reads it the same way it would as if the data had been typed instead of just sitting there in lines in the file. So we can redirect standard input easily enough. So if the less than takes things from a file, it's no great surprise that the greater than sends things to a file. So this time around, we'll run the program. I'll type the information, but everything that's output to standard output is going to go to a file instead. So let's say, let's run myprogx, but we'll send the output to, I don't know, output 1. So it's going to create this file and write all of the standard output to it. So I hit enter. It's sitting there waiting for me to type something in, right? It's waiting for me to type in that number, but the prompt is going to that output1 file. So it's a little weird when we start mixing and matching like this, but I'm going to type in, 327 or some such thing. And the program finishes, and if we look in output1, we'll see that, sure enough, the prompt went there, and the final output went there. So this greater than symbol redirects the output, the standard output. Now let's try that again with a different value. Let's say 177, or how about 117 since I can't type. And if we look in output1, we'll see, so again, it put the information in the file. It wiped out what was there before. So it overwrites the file content if you use this greater than symbol. Actually, let's take a look at one more example here. Only this time, when we run it, let's type in some garbage. So we'll type in blah, 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 blah. So this time, when we hit enter, we see that the error stream is still coming to the screen. And if we look in the file, the prompt went in there, but nothing else. So this greater than symbol redirects the standard output, but not the standard errors. So it redirects that one output stream. So we've got less than to redirect the standard input stream, greater than to redirect the standard output stream. You can combine them. So I can do something like, I can say, let's take, how about we'll take the input from data 1 and we'll send the output to output 1. I don't know. And again, it read hopefully the 37, was it, from data 1, and wrote all the results to output 1. So you can mix and match these things for redirecting standard input and standard output. All right. We can redirect things between programs. So I can take the output from one program and use it as the input to another. So if you notice I was using less here to go through and look at the output file after I redirect it. Well, one of the things we could do is say, let's run my progx, I don't know, from data 1 again, but this time we'll send the output directly to the program less. So this pipe, the vertical bar, says take whatever comes as output from this and send it as input to this. And there we are. So we're now in the less program looking at the output from what we just ran. And you can chain these things together as much as you like, right? You can do something like run prog1, pipe its output into prog2, run its output into prog3, etc., etc., etc. And then send the output to some file. Right, so you can chain this stuff together as much as you like. Now, none of these programs actually exist, so I won't run that. But so we've got the pipe, the less than, the greater than. What else can we do? We mentioned that the greater than symbol is redirecting standard output, but not standard error. If we want to redirect standard error, it's done with this 2 greater than. So let's just experiment with that really quickly, just to confirm that. So let's run my progx, and we'll redirect standard error messages to, I don't know, error file 1. So we're going to run the program. Output is still going to come to the screen. All right, so if I run it normally, it works normally. And if we look in error 1, I don't think we'll find anything, because nothing got written there. Yeah. But now let's try it again. And this time we'll type in some garbage. And if we look, we notice that the error message didn't come up in standard out, come up on the screen. But if we look in error 1, we should see that the error message pops up there. So you've got this to greater than to redirect the error stream. All right. And then if you want to redirect both of them so they both go to the same file, you use the and the greater than. So that's basically saying send the error messages and the output to whatever the file happens to be. So now we've got all kinds of combinations of things that we can play with. Let's see, there was one other thing that I wanted to mention that doesn't appear I stuck in the slides. I didn't. Okay, well, I mentioned that this idea of a file overwriting with the greater than, so if I do my dot slash my progx into file 1 and I type in 200, then it creates the file if it doesn't exist, it overwrites it if it did exist. There's one more option available to us, and that's using the greater than instead. So if I use 2 of these things instead of just 1, then what it does is it runs the program and it adds the content to the end of file 1 instead of replacing file 1. So if we do this and we type in a 77, let's say, and we look in file 1, we see it kept the original output and added the new stuff at the end. Right, and we can do that again if we like. So you can see that it's just adding stuff to the end. So we've got these several different options available to us. We've got the less than, the greater than, the 2 greater thans to append, the vertical bar to pipe things between commands. Right, all sorts of options available to us to experiment with redirecting our output. So just a way for you to play with things. You can put data into a file so that you can run a particular command. Let's say you've got a ton of data that needs to get fed into a program. It's easy to make mistakes if you're typing it all in by hand. If you make sure that you've got it in a file someplace, then you can just say run the program from this file and you don't have to worry about typos if you need to rerun it. If you've got a whole bunch of information that's being generated by a file or by a program, you can store it all in a file and then go back and look through it at your leisure. And it's not like you have to run the program again to get the data again. So this idea of input and output redirection is really handy. It is something that we're going to be using a lot. So I do advise getting comfortable with it, but yeah, hopefully it's just some tips and ideas to help make life with Linux a little bit happier. All right, we'll resume with more Linux stuff next time.